Hank was a pretty normal kid. He loved chicken nuggets, french fries, and eating ants. He also did something that was kind of a bad idea. When he got bored, he would start to chew on the neck of his shirt. His shirt would get wet. It looked a little silly, but to Hank, the wet just made it taste delicious. And the more delicious it tasted, the more Hank could not stop chewing on it. It was Friday morning and Hank was wearing his favorite shirt. He was awake early, way before it was time for school. Soon, after eating 2 pancakes for breakfast, Hank started to get a little bit bored. And even though he had 601 toys, he could not think of anything to do before school. Being bored did something to Hank. It made him think that he was hungry. The hungrier he got, the more bored he became. Before he knew it, he had soon pulled the neck of his shirt in between his teeth. It was soon soaking wet and delicious. The wetter it became, the more and more it began to taste like French fries. It was wonderful. He started to play with his favorite monster truck, but by now, he'd forgotten that his shirt was still in his mouth. After jumping his monster truck over his giant toy school bus full of screaming schoolgirls, Hank's shirt had gotten as soft as cotton candy. Jump! Hank took a bite out of his shirt. Wow! It tasted even better than the last juicy ant that Hank had found in his sandbox. Chomp! 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 3 more bites happened before Hank could even realize what was happening. By now, there was no stopping Hank. Eating this shirt was clearly the best thing that could ever have happened to Hank. Chomp! 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 And chomp! And just like that, Hank had eaten his shirt. All that was left were the sleeves. Hank's tummy felt full and a little funny. He looked down at his full tummy, stuffed full of what used to be his favorite shirt. He began to wonder if he had made a mistake. Hanky! We're late for school! Yelled Mom. She came running to Hank and threw his backpack on him. She was in such a hurry that she didn't even notice that all that was left of Hank's shirt was his sleeves. Hank felt a little funny at school that day. His backpack felt weird on his bare back. It felt a little funny having all of his friends thinking that he was wearing a silly shirt. It felt funny having sleeves on his arms, but no shirt in between the sleeves. His tummy also felt funny on the inside. He didn't eat any of his lunch that day. By the end of the day, it was getting cooler outside. Hank put on his puffy coat that he'd forgotten to take home yesterday. It was his special coat from Grandma. She said it was filled with magic feathers and that it was the best kind of coat in the whole world. On the walk home from school, part of the coat kept getting close to Hank's lips. He was getting hungrier by now. He put his mouth over the neck of the coat. Soon, he was snacking on his coat as if it were a giant tube of yogurt. The coat was almost as delicious as his shirt. Once he got home, Hank realized what he'd been doing. He looked down at his stomach. Luckily, his coat was still there, but his coat used to be puffy. Now, it looked empty, sad, and not very warm. It looked kind of like Hank was wearing a grocery bag. Hank's nose began to tickle. Achoo! He had a giant sneeze. A giant cloud of feathers flew out of Hank's mouth. Hank! Was that you? Called Hank's mother. Uh-huh, said Hank. A few feathers shot out of his mouth as he responded to his mom. Mom asked him some more questions, and each time Hank talked, some more feathers came out of Hank's mouth. It was a long evening. Hank had a lot to say. And each time he talked, more and more feathers kept coming out of his mouth. Every time he sneezed, more feathers came out. He blew and blew and blew to see if he could get the feathers to stop coming. It didn't work. They were showing no sign of stopping. By bedtime, feathers were everywhere, all over the house. They covered the floor. There was so many they came up to Hank's nose. Hank had one last idea. The feathers must have come from his magic coat from Grandma. Maybe he could blow feathers back into the coat and then the feathers would stop coming. He picked up his coat and started puffing air into it. He could feel the feathers flying out of his stomach and out his throat. Soon the coat was full of feathers and puffed up like a balloon, just like before. Good as new. Hank dropped the coat, took a deep breath, and blew out as hard as he could. And nothing happened. No feathers came out. So Hank yelled. Hank screamed. He talked. Hank's dad even grabbed him by the ankles and shook him upside down to see if any more feathers would come out. There wasn't. The feathers were done. No more feathers. What a relief. Now, Hank wondered if he could fix his shirt. He took his shirt off, or what was left of it, at least. He licked the left sleeve. He licked the right sleeve. He licked the left sleeve again. He licked the right sleeve again. He did this all night. By the time the sun woke up, Hank's tongue was hanging out of his mouth like a panting puppy dog. The shirt sleeves were soaking wet. He pushed the left sleeve and the right sleeves together, closed his eyes, and pulled them apart as fast as he could, and yelled at the top of his lungs. Shirts are for wearing, food is for eating, and feathers are for birds! The shirt was fixed, good as new! Yippee! Hank cheered as loud as he could. Yippee! And then his nose began to tickle. Oh no! Out flew a feather. Out of his mouth flew an ant. But that was it. This was going to be a good day.